making a histogram together. In the time trials for the 400-meter run at the state sectionals, the 15 runners recorded the time shown in the table below. Using the data from the frequency column, draw a frequency histogram on the grid provided below. First thing we'll want to do, I'd like to set up our graph. For me, that's a great way to look at it. I like to have everything there so then I can just throw in that information once I have everything set up. Don't have to worry about the words. So, first off, we see our title. I'm going to make it 400-meter run, just like it says. So, 400-meter run. So, now it's deciding what goes on our x-axis and what goes on our y-axis. Our frequency is going to be what goes on our y-axis always. So our frequency goes on our y-axis. So I'm going to label that for us. So always be sure to label these for yourself and for those grading. It just makes it a little bit clearer, shows that you know what's going on, and makes it easier for you. So that leaves our y-axis, right? We know what our y-axis is going to be now. Sorry, our x-axis. Our x-axis is going to be time in seconds. So I'm going to put that on the x-axis. Time, and be sure to put the unit seconds. Now I have to label my numbers, my frequency. Let's try to see the highest frequency. Okay, so it's going to be 6, right? 6 is the highest number we get to. So I'm going to do every 2 boxes because I have a lot of boxes here. So I'm going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is as high as my histogram is going to go. Now I have my time in seconds. So as you see, it gives you like ranges. And that's why we have tallies, because it goes in between these ranges. This is a good way to know to use a histogram. So this doesn't start at 0, right? So what do I got to do? I'm going to create my little break. All right, I'm gonna make it a little bit better. So that's my little break. That's just showing that we're not starting at 0. I'm just going to count how many boxes I have, and then I'm going to count how many sections I have. So how many boxes do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And how many different ranges do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 16 divided by 5. I'm going to give each one 3 boxes. So when I create my ranges, they each get 3 boxes. So 50 to 50.9. I'm just going to draw 3 boxes. 3 more boxes. 51.0 to 51.9. 3 more boxes. And you guys kind of get the idea here. If you don't, please let me know. Put something in the ask a question. 53.0. And then you're just going to label. See, I have 1 box left over. So this was the best way for me to use this graph most efficiently. 54.9. Okay, so now I have all my groups made. Now I just have to fill in my frequency table. So our first section had 0, so we don't put anything there. Now 51 to 51.9, that has 2. So I'm just going to draw up to 2 and fill in that box. Right, all 3 of them? Perfect. So we want them to be touching. So technically our first is still touching, but we're at 0, so you can't see it. Next we have 6 for our next category, so I'll go up to 6. Draw my 3 boxes. Just fill those in. My filling in obviously is not beautiful, so you just have to show that it's filled in enough. There we go. And I'd like you guys to complete the rest of that on your own. So that's the beginning, and we're just going to keep doing that. So for our next category, we put 3, and our last category, we put 4. So see if you can fill those last two in here. Let me know. Now that we've taken a second to look at histograms, we're going to look at box and whisker plots. So we know when to use a histogram and we know when to use a bar graph. So when are we going to use a box and a whisker plot? We're going to use a box and whisker plot when we have multiple data sets from independent sources that are related to each other in some way. So maybe test scores between schools. This is a great way to look at large data sets easily because it sets up a pretty simple way to look at it. We're going to look a little bit deeper right there. And it easily compares two or more data sets. We can look at different but related data together. So it's a good way to see differences in data. And again, we're going to be going a little bit more into detail of what it actually looks like. So it does show us a 5-point summary. That, to me, is the most important thing. That's kind of the meat of it. We've got our minimum, our lower quartile, or our first quartile, our median, our third quartile, or our upper quartile, and then our max. So I always, when I'm approaching a problem, I try to write those things down and fill them in right away. I think it's a little bit easier because when they ask you questions based on that, you can just pull from that and you don't have to look as deeply. Another thing to note is the interquartile range. So I'm going to label that as the IQR, we're going to call it. The interquartile range is actually going to be, I guess, Q2. So it would be the interquartile range, right here, is going to be Q3 minus Q1. So it's going to be our upper quartile minus our lower quartile. And that's going to tell us what's in the actual box. So this box, that's the IQR. So those are just some things to keep in mind. Now let's go and do one together. The test scores from Mrs. Gray's math class are shown below. So here are all of the test scores. The first thing I'm going to do, I've got a box and whisker plot here, so I'm going to write down all those things we talked about before. Minimum, Q1, our median, Q2, our maximum, and I'm also going to write down our IQR. It's our interquartile range. So we'll want to go through our given test scores and find those things. It's going to make setting up our box and whisker plot a lot easier. So what seems to be our lowest value here? Take a second. Okay, I think it's 66. And then let's look for our highest value. The highest value in this list is 95, so that's our max. Now to find the median, how do you guys find the median? Take a second and calculate that if you can.